the Monocle Gate stuff with the CSM. So like basically Monocle Gate and me not being on CSM 7 has nothing to do with the monocles. Monocle wise, I feel like CCP has sort of left themselves vulnerable nowadays because they've expanded the microtransactions so much that now there are ways that people can protest in the game besides unsubscribing from the game. Like, now there's other points that they have opened up. And that whole situation was unfortunately really reminiscent of what we're dealing with now, where there seems to be somebody who's very out of touch in a position of power that is sort of pushing through an agenda. Back then it was microtransactions, greed is good, and also a focus on selling fashion and the whole walking in stations mess and the way that was poorly implemented, etc. And then now we're in a situation where we have sort of similarly like, no, we really understand what we're doing with the economy. You guys are wrong. We're going to do it this way and double down on it. So when too much incompetence gets into the system, that is really where the CSM's job is to either try to put out the fire, or when they can't put out the fire, to announce to everyone that CCP is doing it again and that they're ignoring the CSM. That is actually an incredibly important function of the CSM, is to identify and tell the player base that we can't tell you what it was about, but this thing that CCP has done was against the will of the CSM, and we fought against it, and they did it anyway. So then we know that it's time to get mad.
Now, we promised we'd talk about the economy changes, and I think this is a good point. The introduction of waste, the changes to the Rorqual, essentially devaluing the time that people spend mining. That's sort of the high-level way that I've been looking at it. But why do you see that as a problem? Is it a scenario where the CSM was ignored and, very famously, you've encouraged Goonswarm to protest? Do you see those protests as having been successful with the way CCP's reacted so far?
I mean, I said if there was going to be a riot that we should, people can protest and participate in it. I think that some of our enemies have loudly said that, it was all goons doing it or something or other. But, I was off the table for the last couple of weeks. I was in Toronto, like there was some unpleasant personal stuff. Our dog passed away, and then we fucked off to Canada. Basically just in the week after the riot started. So I've been off the chessboard, and for some reason, completely independent to, Mittani, man, doing a thing, people are still really fucking mad at CCP. And I think that that's good, because I don't actually want to be leading this charge or doing anything like that. Like, I don't know a fucking thing about mining. And the other thing about this is, for me personally, it's less about the individual changes and more a reflection of systemic incompetence, right? Where when you see the situation where CCP in 2014 removed compression from the game, right? Mineral compression was a thing that everybody hated. And in 2014, a CCP dev named CCP Ytterbian posted a dev blog announcing, to great fanfare and general acclaim, one of the few times that the entire community is all kind of agreed on a thing, was like, yeah, that was a shitty mechanic and we shouldn't do that. And so we're going to remove this whole compression thing from the game because it's just a chore. It just sucks. It's not really fun. We don't need this. And there's been a lot of that, sort of weeding the garden of bad mechanics from EVE over the years. And this presents us with a problem when it comes to the question of the administration in charge of running EVE Online as a product. There are two options. In one option, they were not aware of the fact that in 2014 they had done this, because this dev team either never told Ritati, maybe because they are newer developers and they simply didn't know, or they didn't ask anybody on the CSM, or it just didn't come up, and that they were blindsided maybe by the fact that this mechanic was already in the game in the past and we had all decided it sucked and got rid of it. So that's the newer, like, Ritati used to be a Dust console guy, now he's over here managing EVE, and maybe option one, they didn't know that it existed before it had been removed from the game. And that's really bad, right? Like, I want to point out here that is really bad, because the company should know what its own product was, its own product history. They have players they can listen to. They could just talk to people and find out, hey, this is the thing that we used to have, and we all agreed it sucked, and you guys, CCP, removed it from the game because you also agreed that it sucked. So option one, that he didn't know, is bad. Option two is that they did know, that they were aware that in 2014 compression sucked, that they were aware that the player base hated it, they were aware that the CCP devs at the time thought it was bad and they should get rid of it, And they knew all this, and they did it anyway, right?
To be clear, in-space compression as opposed to just making it a click thing in station.
Yeah. So, like, it's just... for me, it's not about the line-by-line details. It's that ever since Rattati got in charge of Eve, devblog after devblog has come down the pipe, which pretty much has made things worse. Some of them have been fine, but increasingly there is a disturbing level of incompetence creeping into the game. And for me, that's really what it's about. Now, I've been told by my finance team that there are a number of fixes that can be implemented into the game that will reverse the slide of the economy and sort of unfuck this stuff. But one of the other reasons why I'm not really going to be like charging out there to try to change this is that what CCP has done functionally with their Age of Prosperity scarcity fixes is they have pulled up the ladder behind us. Like if this was like World of Warcraft, it would be like they changed the drop rate such that nobody can get purple loot anymore, and it's just the people that have it get their fancy shiny toys, right? Like we won the biggest war in gaming history. We blew up 300 or so of the bad guys' titans, and then they lost a handful more on the way back. Hundreds of their dreadnoughts. My God, that breakout. And then CCP changes the game in such a way that titans are worth 350 billion ISK. And dreadnoughts are worth 10 billion ISK. So on the one hand, what Rattati is doing is fucking the game over and is bad for the game. And I think we need puppies. We need a constitutive other. We need a them so we can have a strong us, right? And so I want the ecosystem and the food web of Eve to be healthy because, Hell Wars suck and all, but on the other hand, it's kind of fun to fight them. And it's different when you're dealing with a sort of a new game experience style developer incompetence shit show. So it's kind of either way from my perspective we're going to be okay. Like I think that either sanity is going to prevail and they will reverse some of these changes and maybe get the idiots away from the controls, or they change the game in such a way that we have the most titans in the world. Like we have the most of the heavy hardware because we just got done blowing up all the Pappy stuff. So it's kind of disappointing because it reminds me of like the Olmeca Gold situation where you had a CSM who was so laser focused on his completely myopic, obsessive illusion of what Goonswarm is about that he was constantly campaigning against like Rorquals and all of these other things. And essentially he nerfed his own playstyle out of existence because he was just so obsessed with doing the wrong thing and would never correct course. And unfortunately, what we're seeing with the current CCP communication is that, and they've done this before, they don't like being called on the carpet. They don't like being told that they did wrong, is they are debating whether they will admit that they were wrong and actually listen to the community and give changes that the community wants, or whether they're going to have to keep coming out from like left field with these random solutions that nobody asked for, that aren't actual real solutions, but are sort of designed for CCP to save face now that people are throwing tomatoes. So in summary, it's a complete shit show.